Hey there everyone, this is Ram here, back with another video. So today we are going to learn about input element, and input is a very important element in the form element, actually within the form element. So we will learn more about the input element and its attributes. So I think let's get started. The input element, it can be defined in different ways depending on its type attribute. If you remember, in the last video we have used the type attribute, and these were the texts. This was the radio type, these were the text types, and there are other text type attributes also. So we will cover that, but right now in the input element, I think we should not go more with the type attribute. So the input element, we have seen the use before, and the method is, the syntax of the input element is this. We have done it last time, first name, and then here I'm going to say type, and the type is text. Okay, if you guys remember in the last video, I have just defined the type first, and later I have defined it like this, in this way, and it should be the last name, let's say. Okay, and it should be space. So we can write in both ways, no problem. It can work in both of the ways. Okay, if we omit the type attribute, then the input field gets the default type, and the default type is text. Suppose if I don't if I forget to add this type attribute, then it will, by default, it will get the, let me say, have a BR break, line break, and there should be again a first name. It will be easy for me to explain. Okay, line break, and then here should be the last name and line break. Okay, so you can see the first name, we use the type attribute, text type attribute, but here we didn't, we omitted, we just remove it intentionally, so it is not appear. Like here we don't have a type attribute, but by default it is accepting, because of the browser, it is accepting that it is just it is assuming, or it just accepted that this should be also the text type. Okay, so if we omit or if we forget to use the type attribute, then it by default it use the text type, and it is going to use the text type in the radio buttons also, because if we forget that, then it is going to use the text type. Okay, so while working with this, especially with the radio buttons or the checklist, and we should be careful, we shouldn't forget to use the type. There is another element which is known as select element, and the select element defines a drop-down list. Hopefully I am sure that you guys have used forms, and sometimes you have seen that there is a drop-down list within that form. So that drop-down list can be achieved by the select element. So let's go and learn the select element. Okay, it is within the pairs, so it has an opening and the closing tag, or the closing element. Now how we can use this one, the select, and I'm just going to say name would be animals. Okay, and here let's give it the option value, not value, value, and the value would be cat, the first value of mine. Let me say cat. Then another option, the value of it should be dog. Let me copy paste it for a couple of times. Then horse, and here I want to go with tiger. Okay, let's save it. This option, it is also an element, and this option elements define the selection. Okay, it defines the selection, that what we are going to select from the list. Okay, and to define a pre-selected option, we need to add the selected attribute to the option, and later we will do that. But right now let's go to the browser. You can see here we have a cat, a dog, and we have different options, horse and tiger. We didn't select anything here that this should be the selected item. Like suppose if you guys can go back, and here the last item was tiger. Okay, the cat is here, by it is just selected, and the list is set with the tag because it is the first value of the option. But if I want to select something else, like I want to select the horse, okay, the horse should appear there, so I should use the selected. It's a pre-selected option. Okay, so I'm just going, and you can see that we have selected a horse, so horse will appear here in the list first. Okay, we can use there is another attribute, we can use that attribute also, and that attribute is a size attribute. So here in this select tag, I'm just going to say size, and the size I want to say 2. Now what this size is going to do, this size, you can see that I have this size in our drop down list, the size showing the 2 options from the list. If we click on this button, then it moves, okay, downwards, and it is showing the other 2. Like right now, let me explain you in another way. Let me delete it for now. And if we go back, there is only one button, drop down button. When we click on it, we can see 1, 2, 3, 4 or 4 elements, okay, or 4 options. But when we use this size attribute here, and I'm assigning it that it should be 2, the 2 values should appear. So let me save it, and you can see that the drop down list is showing me the 2 elements, the 2 options, and when I click on this down button, it is showing me the other 2 elements, and when I click on upward button, then it is again showing me the other 2 elements. So this size attribute is helpful sometimes if we want to use the if we want to show 2 or 3 or some certain or limited items in the list, then this size attribute is very helpful in that case. Okay, now let's go and learn about something else, and that is, and there is another element of, okay, and I should delete this code, and here I'm going to say text area. The text area would be let me explain you. Write it here and I'll explain you what is the text area. The text area is in our example, we have a name, email, and this message, this box is a text area. Okay, we can get this type of box by using this text area element or text area tag. Okay, so here the text area would be how we can use that. Let me say text area, and I should say name. The name of this text area would be message, and I'm going to define the rows. I want it to have a 10. The rows is I'll explain you. Okay, let me write it and then I'll explain you. And then calls is for columns, and 20 columns, and I think it should be 8 rows and 20 columns. And here should be I love to have a dog. Okay, now what is this rows and columns? The rows attribute specify the visible number of lines in the text area, and the columns attribute, it defines the visible width of the text area. So as I've mentioned that it should be there should be 8 rows and 20 columns. If I go to the browser, and here you can see that the space, this box has covered the space. This space is covered according to the dimensions we have set within our code, 8 rows and 20 columns. If I say, let me say 20 rows and 40 columns. Let me save it, go back to the browser, and you can see the 20 rows and 40 columns are merged together, or they are just spanning. So we can go to, so we can see it clearly that these rows and columns, how they affect to our text area, to our message box. Okay, we can style it later in the CSS. Okay, and now let's go and learn about the button element. So the button element defines the clickable buttons, and here let it be like this. Let me reduce the size, and here I'm going to use the button element. So here I should say button element, button type. The type of the button should be button because we are going to use a button. And we should say on click, like when we click or when the user click on this, something happens. Actually it is more about like JavaScript, but let's go and use it right now. This alert of hello world will appear. Okay, and it shouldn't be in the double quote, it should be in the single quote, and this shouldn't be here. I'm sorry. Okay, sorry, I should say this. And now and here let's say click me, save it, and the browser is there. So we have a button here. Okay, and this alert, we got this alert hello world, and you can see this hello world, and this is, that's okay. Again click it, that it appears, and it is working. This alert you will understand in the future when we will start the JavaScript. Okay, right now just keep it on faith that there is something happens if we do something like this. Okay, there is we need to define the type of the button attribute always, because different browsers have different default types for the button element. So if we do not define the type of the button, then it will mess up with the browser. So we have to define with the we have to define the type of the button, as we have learned earlier in this lesson that by default the type is text. So we shouldn't go with that by default, or like some magical term that browser will do it itself. No, browser will mess it, like it work with differently with different browsers. So we should be concerned with the type of the button element. Okay, there is something more, which is input and data list input and output. Right now we are not going to cover that. We will cover that when we will start our programming language or any scripting language, because then at that time it will be more helpful to understand. So I think it's enough for this lesson. See you next time with another lesson and with another topic. If you like the video, please press the like button, and if you want to learn more about HTML and CSS furthermore, so do hit the subscribe button, please. It will help me. And bye for now. Ciao ciao. Hasta la vista.